In this exchange, Representative Lucy McBath lays out a grim pattern of politically and racially motivated violence gripping the country. She challenges FBI Director Kash Patel with a simple but consequential question: whether domestic terrorism is truly a top priority or merely a talking point. What follows is a sharp clash between accountability and self-defense.
Thank you for coming in today, Mr. Patel. In the past few months, the country has experienced a string of horrific, high-profile attacks that have been motivated by racial hatred or political ideology. Shooter attacked the CDC headquarters, firing hundreds of rounds and killing a police officer. An arsonist set fire to the Pennsylvania governor, Josh Shapiro's residence, with the governor and his family actually inside. Minnesota House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband were assassinated earlier this year. Clark and Charlie Kirk was murdered last week. Bomb threats have been made against HBCUs and the DNC, and just the list goes on and on. I only have just a few minutes today, so I don't want to take a lot of time to go into all the countless and devastating violent crimes and incidents that have happened at our schools or on our streets and in our communities that have just been happening all year long. Mr. Patel, just yes or no, is this type of political violence ever acceptable in your eyes?
No.
I'm glad that these heinous acts designed to instill fear and division in our nation are never, ever acceptable. Yet each of these incidents has recently taken place under your watch. The FBI's website states that protecting the United States from terrorist acts is the FBI's #1 priority, including from domestic terrorists. Is this still your #1 priority?
Domestic terrorism?
Preventing domestic terrorism.
Our #1 priorities are protecting the homeland and international terrorism and crushing violent crime, and domestic terrorism sort of interlays between both of those.
Okay, so well, then I'm glad that you're giving us the right answer, but unfortunately, your actions kind of tell a different story. Earlier this year, you granted the ranks of the FBI's Domestic Terrorism Operations Section. This is the section of the FBI that is most directly responsible for addressing political violence in our country by preventing attacks from occurring and effectively responding to them if they do. The agents in this section are the ones who stopped an individual stockpiling weapons, who planned to attack schools and churches in Florida and seized bombs made by an ISIS sympathizer in New Orleans. And instead of ensuring that this section has all the resources that it needs at a time when its mission is critical, you fired its decorated veteran FBI agents who have served their country proudly under Republican and both Democratic presidents, and you scrapped the tools that they developed to fight domestic terrorism, including the National Domestic Terrorism Incident Database.
I mean, most of that is just not true. We have 1,700 current DT managed programs. We're up 300% in the amount of cases we brought against nihilistic, violent extremists, including 764, wishing to harm our children. The FBI and the men and women are getting after that problem set more than ever because I've unleashed them to do so. And any situation that these tragic occurrences across the country are somehow singularly my fault or disgusting because that watershed goes down to the men and women at the FBI, and they are not responsible for it. I'm happy to work with you to get them what they need.
Gentlelady controls the time. Unanimous consent request. You'll state a request.
Thank you very much. Into the record, an article from Reuters titled FBI Scales Back Staffing, Tracking of Domestic Terrorism, Probes Sources Say. Thank you very much.
Without objection.
I appreciate that. So, Mr. Patel, and it isn't just the domestic terrorism operations section. Under your watch, agents are fully diverting their attention to these anti-immigrant and city takeover operations, leaving our children vulnerable to dangerous networks of online predators, both domestic and international. You pulled more than 120 FBI agents from their normal duties to operate sobriety checks and conduct traffic stops, exposing the FBI's fleet of unmarked cars and thereby making it harder for the FBI to combat violent criminal gangs, foreign intelligence services, and drug traffickers in the process.
That's simply not true. If we were not able to do two things at one time, how would we be
Patel, I
seizing
reclaim
record
my
amounts of
time. I
fentanyl?
reclaim my time.
23,000
Chairman, I'd like to
violent
enter
felons have
into
been
the
arrested.
Time belongs to the
More
gentlelady.
than twice as many as
Consent
last
Time
request.
belongs to the gentlelady from Georgia.
Thank you very much. And this request basically is It is an article from Reuters, which quotes law enforcement officers familiar with agents who once covered child exploitation cases, but now focus on immigration child exclusive. Thousands of agents diverted to Trump immigration track down. Mr. Patel, in the short time I have left, your tenure as director of FBI has been somewhat problematic. Americans are left definitely less safe under your watch. You have gutted the FBI's ability to keep safe from domestic terrorism. You have sent FBI agents to conduct traffic stops and round up hardworking immigrants who pose no danger to public safety. People even President Trump referred to as good, long-time workers. Your job is to protect and serve the American public.
Time to the
You have
gentlelady.
spent your time protecting heinous individuals and using the FBI to serve as a political circus. You at times have appeared unequipped,
Time
and
of
this
the
country
gentlelady has
deserves better, and
expired.
I yield.
Gentlelady yields
May I
back.
respond?
Sure can.
Simply put, what is it? Are we failing? If we're failing, how are we arresting 23,000 violent felons? Twice as many as this time last year. Are we failing? Because if we're failing, how are we seizing 1,500 kilograms of meth, 25% increase from last year? Are we failing? Because we captured 4 top 10 FBI most wanted from around the world in 7 months. That's more than the entirety of the last administration. Are we failing? Because we put 1,500 child predators in prison. Are we failing? Because we dismantled 300 human trafficking networks. Which is it? You don't like me, that's fine. But don't you dare disparage the men and women of the FBI that are producing record results in historic fashion to protect this country. They are kicking ass for America, and they're going to continue to do so.
This exchange highlights a fundamental tension that goes far beyond personalities or partisan theatrics. At its core, Representative McBath's argument is not about whether crime statistics can be cited or arrests can be counted, but about institutional focus, judgment, and trust. She frames domestic terrorism as a clear and present danger, supported by a disturbing list of recent attacks, assassinations, arson, and threats. Her line of questioning is built to force a moral baseline first, whether political violence is ever acceptable, and then to interrogate whether the FBI's actions align with its stated mission. McBath's critique centers on priorities. She points to staffing cuts, dismantled tools like the National Domestic Terrorism Incident Database, and the reassignment of experienced agents away from domestic extremism toward immigration enforcement and street-level operations. In her view, this represents not just a policy disagreement, but a dangerous misallocation of resources at a time when ideologically driven violence is escalating. By naming specific cases where FBI agents previously prevented mass casualty attacks, she underscores what she believes is being lost: preventative capacity, institutional memory, and specialized expertise. What strengthens McBath's argument is her emphasis on prevention rather than reaction. Domestic terrorism investigations often succeed when attacks never happen, making their value difficult to quantify with arrest numbers alone. When analysts, data systems, and specialized units are weakened or redirected, the cost is invisible until it becomes tragic. Her concern is that by the time success can be measured publicly, it may already be too late for the victims of the next attack. Patel's response follows a familiar defensive pattern. He rejects the premise outright, counters with large aggregate numbers, arrests, seizures, takedowns, and frames criticism as an attack on the men and women of the FBI rather than on leadership decisions. This rhetorical move shifts the debate from strategic oversight to loyalty and morale. By doing so, Patel avoids directly addressing whether agents are being pulled from certain missions, whether analytical tools were scrapped, or whether domestic terrorism has been deprioritized relative to other political objectives. What makes this exchange particularly revealing is that both sides may be talking past each other. Patel emphasizes outputs: arrests made, drugs seized, predators jailed. McBath emphasizes inputs and structure: where agents are assigned, which threats receive sustained attention, and whether prevention is being weakened in favor of visible enforcement actions. The disagreement is less about whether the FBI is doing things, and more about whether it is doing the right things, in the right places, at the right time. McBath's closing remarks sharpen this divide by linking policy choices to public safety outcomes. She argues that using the FBI for traffic stops and immigration sweeps, while politically popular in some quarters, risks turning a national security agency into a blunt instrument and eroding its core mission. Her accusation that the Bureau is being used as a political circus is less about insult and more about warning. When law enforcement priorities follow political signaling instead of threat assessments, the public ultimately pays the price. Patel's final rebuttal, passionate and forceful, rallies around institutional pride and record-setting metrics. But metrics alone do not fully answer concerns about direction, transparency, or long-term risk. This exchange leaves viewers with an unresolved but critical question. Is the FBI measuring success by what is easiest to count or by what is hardest to prevent? In that gap between numbers and prevention lies the real debate over safety, leadership, and the future role of federal law enforcement.